Good morning and welcome back to Coffee with the Callers. I'm Father James and this is
Seminarian Will.
And he is sitting in for Father Doug Jeffers this morning because Seminarian Will and I are on assignment in the Holy Land. We are on our pilgrimage and we thought that we would give you a special edition of Coffee with the Callers from the Holy Land. Good morning, Seminarian Will.
Good morning, Father James.
How are you doing today? Well, I got my coffee mug here.
Yeah, you got an Abu Ghosh coffee mug.
This is from the Benedictine Abbey, Abu Ghosh, which is one of the traditional sites that we believe the Emmaus story took place, where on the day of the resurrection, Christ was walking and joined the resurrected Christ, and he joined two pilgrims that were leaving the old city of Jerusalem, wondering what had happened in this crazy weekend. And then finally, at the breaking of the bread, they recognized him as Christ. So, Will, here we are. You've been here for like 5 weeks now. How are you feeling as you get deep into your Holy Land experience?
Well, it's been an amazing time to be here. I've learned a ton about this place, and you know, one of the things that I'll take back with me is forever is the land, right? You can read the Bible, and you should, and of course, we can read the Bible at home, and we should draw spiritual experiences out of that. But when you see the land, when you see the places, when you experience what it meant to, you know, go down to in Gehenna and in the Kidron Valley and on the Mount of Olives, and you see all these things, you really get a sense of what these guys were talking about when they were writing.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about the land, we are actually in a valley right now that is in between Beit Jala, which is a suburb of Bethlehem, and Bethlehem proper. So when you see the land, you can see just how hilly it is. It's very similar to the Texas Hill Country. And right behind me on that horizon that you see, it's just about 2 miles across that horizon, and that's the city of Jerusalem. So when we think about Bethlehem and Jerusalem, you know, when we're at Christmas time, I mean, it's almost like a suburb of Jerusalem. You could walk from
easily
Bethlehem
walk in like half a day from where we're standing to the tomb.
Yeah, so Will just finished up his 4-week program at an institute called Tantur. So, Will, tell me about what that experience was like, and what is Tantur?
Yeah, Tantur is an ecumenical institute run by the Catholic Church. So what that means is they strive to promote inter-Christian dialogue, right? Inter-Christian dialogue between the different churches. And, I mean, to be honest, this is the place to do it.
Sure.
Right? You go into the Holy Sepulchre, actually, and there's 3 Christian churches
claiming ownership.
Yeah. It's kind of an interesting place, and you really see what ecumenism looks like on the ground level in a lot of ways. So that program involved going all over to the different holy sites, of course, and that kind of thing. But it also involved just being with people from both Catholic priests and other Christian ministers and things like that, learning from each other, and that was a good experience.
Sure. So Tantur is actually, I did the program when I was a seminary. I recommended it to Will when he was on pastoral year. And Tantur is actually an institute that is owned by the University of Notre Dame. And they partner with the staff here in Jerusalem to host people on 4-week sabbaticals, 3-month sabbaticals. Someone can probably come on a 6-month sabbatical. And just over Will's right shoulder, just on the horizon there, you might be able to make out a green outcrop, and that is Tantur. So we're really close to Tantur. So Will's been here for about 5.5 weeks now. He stayed after his 4-week session at Tantur to join 14 other seminarians on this pilgrimage. The Knights and Ladies of the Holy Sepulchre, Evelyn McNair is a knight, Donna Medlock is a knight, the Collins are knights, of course, Gilbert and Tina Bernal are knights. So we have the Watkins, Steve and Jackie Watkins, Shannon and April Swenson. This is an order of Catholic people who, for 800 years now, have dedicated themselves to taking care of the holy sites in the Holy Land.
That's right.
And so a very generous benefactor from the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre gave some money so that every year seminarians can be brought on pilgrimage to the Holy Land before they're ordained to the priesthood. And so Will was one of those seminarians that was included in that group, and I was the priest who was asked to come with them as their spiritual guide. So Will, as a seminarian, I mean, you're thinking about your time here in the Holy Land. I mean, what is it about being here that you think is going to be of major benefit when you become a priest?
You know, Father, it's hard. I think I was talking with another seminarian yesterday, actually, and it's hard to articulate exactly what this experience will mean in the future.
Sure.
I know now that I'll preach differently. Right?
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right? Like you look at these things and you understand the scriptures better. But I think that it also, there's a lot of unpacking of the places like the Holy Sepulchre and the agony, the Gethsemane garden. That place for me is one of the most special places in the world because it is kind of, it represents for me that constant desire that God has for us to follow him and do his will, and then our kind of humanity that sometimes gets in the way of that. And Christ struggled with that, and to be in that place. And so I think that's one of the things that I'm still unpacking, and I don't know exactly how it will impact everything. But
well, for me, when I think of things, like say for example in John's Gospel where Jesus says, "All you who want living water, come to me."
Yeah.
And you think, living water. Well, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't rain here in the Holy Land between, say, April 1st and like November 1st. So literally for 6 months there will be no rain at all. The only rain that comes is after November all the way through the spring. And so what would have happened would have been people would have had cisterns carved into stone patios, and the water would have rolled off the top of the roof on a heavy rainstorm into the cistern, and then it would have filled up maybe 150, 250, 500-gallon cisterns. Yeah. And then they would put a lid over top of it. And then during the dry season, when they needed water, they would just come and take water out. And that water level would go lower and lower and lower. And the things that were coming off the roof during the rain would have been in that cistern, and so there would be a silt on the bottom of that water. Yeah. So by the time you get to October, the end of the dry season, you're drinking silt.
Yeah.
And so we know from biblical exegesis that when Jesus said that, it was around the Feast of Booths, which happens in the fall.
Yep.
It's sort of like a feast for the harvest. So when Jesus said, "I have living water," the people said, "I need some of that living water,"
give me that living
because
water.
Their water had gone sour. So these are the kind of things that you learn in the Holy Land that you never would have learned before. Or, for example, going into the Nativity Basilica here in Bethlehem. Jesus wasn't born in a barn. He wasn't born in kind of a European-looking lean-to with lovely Christmas trees around. And he was born in a cave. They had, this whole area is pocked with caves. And people would go and get a cave, and then they would build out from the cave stone houses. So you'd walk into what looks like a house, and in the back of the house would be like a 25-foot deep cave where they would store jars, or they would store grain.
They would
put
their animals.
Put their animals.
Yeah, exactly.
So when Jesus was laid in a manger, he was laid in the feeding trough of the animals that were in the cave in the back of that family's house. So being here, it really brings that to light.
It does, and things like that. You know, you just don't, unless you see it, you can't really articulate it very well. And I think the other thing that I got a lot of time in the Holy Sepulchre. I had the privilege of spending the night there.
Well, tell us about that. So how does that work?
Yeah, so you can actually, if you come to the Holy Land, you can go to the Sacristy of the Franciscans. So the Franciscans of the Holy Land, they basically run probably 90% of the Catholic shrines here in the Holy Land. And in the Holy Sepulchre, there's a sacristy, and you go talk to a Franciscan priest and say, "I'd like to make a vigil." And they tell you a date, and you go there at about 9 o'clock at night, and you're prepared to stay there till 5 a.m.
Yeah, because they lock the door.
Yeah.
So you get in there, they lock the door, and you can't leave.
Right.
It's not like you can say, "Hey, listen, I'm tapping out. I got to get out."
Because this door is huge, and there's a whole paraliturgy of locking the door.
That is right.
It's crazy. So I got the.
So you spent the whole night.
I did. Yeah. They actually opened the door a little bit early because there was a Russian Orthodox liturgy going on. But I spent the night till 4:45 in the morning.
So you got there at what time?
At 8:30.
So you basically spent 7 hours in vigil in the church over the tomb where Christ resurrected.
Yeah.
Wow, that's outstanding.
It was an amazing experience. And I got the opportunity to be in the Edicule and be there at the place where he was resurrected. And Paul says, if Christ is not risen from the dead, then we are the most miserable of men.
Yeah.
And to be in the place where Christ rose from the dead, and to just have it clearly in my mind, and not just a little bit of time. A lot of people have just a little bit of time to be there.
Yeah.
To just be like, he's not here.
Yeah.
He is risen.
That's correct.
See the place where he's been laid.
And in fact, we're saying Mass tomorrow morning in the Edicule, which is the little chapel over top of the tomb that Christ resurrected from. And that's going to be my homily. It's not going to be long. It's going to be, well, the whole point is that it's empty.
Yeah.
He's not here. Yeah. And that's the entire Christian experience refined down into one statement.
It is.
He has risen. Alleluia. Alleluia. So it's been, a pilgrimage is tough. It's not easy going on pilgrimage. I mean, you're tired every day. It's hard work dealing with the crowds and dealing with the heat and dealing with just sort of the inconveniences of trying to get into, 1,000-year-old churches. And so sometimes you find yourself like, this is my own version of the Passion. But it's always wonderful to end the pilgrimage with Mass at the tomb of the resurrection, because then it brings all of it into this one focus, that it's all about the resurrection. When Father David Yeager leads pilgrimages here, many of our St. Louis people are friends of Father David, and he'll give a homily like this. He'll say, here we are in the tomb, and of course the point is that the tomb is empty. This is what it's all about. So, I mean, I don't know if I'll do that tomorrow in the Mass. It would be pretty hilarious, but it would be irreverent if I did that.
It'd be a little bit.
But that's going to be my homily.
But that's it. That's the point. And, that's why we should come.
Absolutely.
Right? That's it. And you could come here for 3 days and do that, and it would be worth the trip.
Absolutely.
Right? So
listen, thanks for joining us. We could go on and on. Our 60 seconds on pilgrimage was never 60 seconds. It's like there's too much to say. There's not enough time in the day to talk about it. But we'll be sharing our stories with you when we see you, and maybe we'll get Will back to the parish, and Seminarian Will and I could give a presentation on our experience here in the Holy Land. So we're grateful to the Knights and Ladies of the Holy Sepulchre who made this possible for us seminarians to do that. Thank you, Knights and Ladies. And thanks for joining us all week long on our 60 Seconds on Pilgrimage. And so Father Doug and Father Jesse, thank you guys for watching over the parish for me while I was away. And I'm looking forward to seeing you guys and telling you all about the pilgrimage. So have a great Friday, and we'll see you on Sunday.